our meeting to order. It is 6:01 and declare that we do have a board quorum present. The mission of Brazosport ISD is to graduate each student to be future ready. If you will please stand for our invocation, which I'm going to ask Mr. Dunn to lead, and then our pledges of allegiance, the illustrious Mr. Atkins.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, Lord, we just pause right now just to recognize your presence and, Father, just to give thanks and praise for taking care of us and for blessing us in so many different ways. Father, as we get close to the new school year, Lord, we just lift up every campus, every child, every employee, every family that we get to work with. Father, just pray that it would be a safe and just a wonderful year, making just wonderful differences in the lives of everybody that we get to touch. Father, we pray for tonight, for the things that we discuss and the decisions that we make. We look for you for guidance and just pray that we'd be directed in the right ways. Forgive for we faith. In Jesus' name we pray.
Please join me in the pledges. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor
the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
All right. Please have a seat. At this time, in accordance with BED Local, the board will provide an audience with individuals who have signed prior to the meeting to address the board. Tonight we do not have anyone, so we will move on to our next item. Our next item are our action items. Public comments will be allowed before a vote is taken on each action item. Our first action item is to schedule a public meeting to discuss the 25-26 budget and the 2025 proposed tax rate. Ms. Ludy Cancino.
Thank you. Good evening, board members, and ladies and gentlemen of the public. Tonight we are presenting information related to the district's 2025-26 proposed budget and tax rates. As required by Chapter 44 of the Texas Education Code, school districts must follow specific procedures before adopting a budget and tax rate, including publishing, notice, and holding a public hearing. This presentation provides an overview of the proposed tax rate and the next steps in the adoption process. Chapter 44 of the Texas Education Code outlines the requirements school districts must follow when adopting a budget and tax rate. This includes publishing public notice and holding a hearing that includes specific state-mandated information. Since January, the Board of Trustees has received regular updates during scheduled meetings to ensure transparency and provide opportunities for feedback. The proposed 2025-26 budget includes a 2025 tax year rate of 0.6822 for maintenance and operations and 0.2153 for interest and sinking, resulting in a total tax rate of 0.8975. This represents a 5-cent decrease from the previous year's rate. Including this year's reduction, the district has lowered the M&O tax rate by a total of 35 cents over the past 6 years, demonstrating a strong ongoing commitment to long-term fiscal responsibility. Certified property values were received on July 25, 2025, initiating a 60-day window in which the district must adopt a final tax rate. As part of the tax rate planning process, the administration explored the option of adopting 3 disaster pennies under state law. This option could have generated approximately $5 million in additional revenue, and after careful consideration, the administration has decided not to pursue this option at this time. As shown on the budget planning calendar, August 18th marks the final step in our budget development process. At the board meeting on August 18th, we will officially adopt the 2025 tax rate and the 2026 budget, bringing this year's budget cycle to a close. The administration recommends that the board vote to schedule and publish notice for a public hearing on August 18th, 2025 at 6 p.m., at which the 2025 tax rate and 2026 budget will be presented for formal consideration and adoption.
All right, do we have any questions? Ms. Cancino? From the audience? I'm sorry.
Looks like the INS rate is staying the same.
Golly, thought it was gonna be double. Should we read out them just in case someone decides to watch the video and before they write an article, or should we just rely on the presentation? I don't know. We're not on duty yet. Tax rate will lower.
5 1/4 cents.
So last year's tax rate was .9508, and the proposed rate that will be published in the notice will be .8975, and that is a reduction of .0533. So that's a little over 5 cents.
All right. Any questions or comments from the audience before we move on the recommendation? All right, we have a recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
I move that we schedule a vote for August 18th for the tax rate.
It's been moved by Mr. Swartner. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Cuellar. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by nay. All right, that carries. Thank you, Ms. Cancino. Next item that we have under our action items is student personal communication devices, electronic devices. Man, I've been waiting for this. Mr. Jay Whitehead.
Okay. All right, thank you. So this will be a two-part presentation. The first part will be board policy FNCE local, and the second part will be the student code of conduct. So we'll begin with the framework for House Bill 1481. Good evening. Due to the recent 89th legislative session, House Bill 1481 was signed into law by Texas Governor Greg Abbott. House Bill 1481 bans student use of personal communication devices during the school day in Texas public schools. To align with House Bill 1481, our local policy, FNCE local, is in need of the board's approval for updating. A copy of the updated version of FNCE local has been provided in your board book for your reference. In alignment with House Bill 1481, students may not use personal communication devices during the school day and are subject to disciplinary action if they violate this restriction, including confiscation of the communication device. Exceptions to the restriction are for students with individual education plans or programs, 504 plans, or to comply with a health or safety requirement imposed by law or as part of the district or campus safety protocols. Additionally, the superintendent shall develop regulations to implement this policy, and annually the superintendent shall report to the board on the implementation and compliance of this policy. More information regarding the specific details and regulations for application of this board policy will be provided in the following presentation and recommendation of the student code of conduct. At this time, it is the recommendation of the administration that the board approve board policy FNCE local as presented.
Question from the board?
I have a couple. Where do we keep confiscated phones? I mean, these are not cheap devices. Having a collection of these, 10, 15, 20 of them by the end of the day seems like a pretty big risk.
Yes.
Do we have a lockbox? Do we have a safe? I mean, they're not just be in somebody's drawer.
We'll have the designated area per campus. I know that we do have safes that are being used at Freeport Intermediate right now. That's their practice this year. They were brought to the office and put in the safe until the end of the day, and then they were taken out. So yes, the campuses are right now developing where those are going to be housed to ensure that there's no lost or stolen property. We understand
I
there's
assume we mark them in some way that we know who's
Yes.
who's and
Yes.
all that.
Yes, so there
Personal
will be a
opinion, we should
logistical.
my personal opinion based on the, I think we probably should just have the parent come pick them up first offense and be done with this and make that the same
quicker, the sooner we can get them out of our hands, is probably best.
And I'll speak
How-
more to this, in the student code of conduct section, I'm gonna put a big pause on all of our outlined guidelines, so that we can take a little deeper dive into the stages of the process, so.
Yeah, to me, it's, parents probably knew they took it, so make them come get it and be done with this thing. How many doctor's notes are we expecting? Have we communicated to doctors in an area that this may be coming?
Never know.
Do we know of any, I mean, how many 504 plans do we have that require some type of device or a cell phone, or do we have any currently written that way?
I can't say off of that.
I know we have a few that have iPads and things like that, but I can't imagine a phone is done. And if they have communication device, I guess it could be a communication device, but,
Yeah,
that'll be the next thing, is how many,
They see a lot of Nintendo Switches in the cafeteria.
yeah. It'd be like
From
medical marijuana, all of a sudden everybody's got a doctor's note, right? So, but yeah, I think that'll be interesting too, to see if,
How many don't?
how many go this route too as well, and what a qualified physician means and all those kind of things too as well, so.
But it is a little ironic when a kid hasn't need any special modifications for the first 9 years of his schooling.
And they get to-
And all of a sudden, year 10, when we have a personal communication device, that the kid's medical condition changes. So I think that gets to play in that
Yeah.
as well.
So I know we've been, we've kind of been plugged into this thing and talked about it some. Have we already started communication with parents, and, I mean, I'm sure that'll be covered extensively, as we get closer, or we getting any feedback, or?
We've not received any. We did send a communication out a few weeks ago, and then we have this flyer ready after the board approves it. That's gonna be a part of the news story and go out on social media also, so, students are aware, yeah. I got 2 calls the day that went out, and said, because I know I'm on the board, they're like, what's going on? From the students.
Yeah.
Like, call your congressman, state legislator, call your state legislator.
So,
They're all at it.
one other, and I've thought about this because, I mean, I've seen it in the workplace and the issues when we try to, are we giving any additional instruction to teachers about their own personal use of cell phones? And when, I mean, I know that's kind of hard to do for adults, but I mean, from a perspective of students, them knowing that theirs is not allowed, I would hate to see any type of abuse potentially from teachers, to where, it's sending the mixed messages. And I don't know if we can emphasize that in some way with our teachers, and I'm sure they would probably, knowing that this is gonna help them, I think in the long run, I would think they would be kind of sensitive to their own use.
Yeah, our expectation of teachers is they are engaged with the students and teaching classes, and not, I think the intent of this bill was really to keep kids from being distracted from being engaged, and we certainly don't want teachers being distracted from being engaged because they're on their phones, especially if they're on social media and things like that. There's not, but it's kind of like Mr. Reinhardt used to bring a big cup of coffee in his room every day. The students couldn't bring cups of coffee in their room, but the teacher could, because he was a teacher. So it's, so I think there's some of that in play too, is
Sure.
that, I'm not an adolescent, I'm an adult, and I can use my phone responsibly. But, so we're not gonna ban teachers from phones, but I do think, we don't expect teachers to not be engaged with teaching students because of their phone either, absolutely.
I think another thing we have to keep in mind, and this is just from a long time of experience, sometimes we decide, we're not gonna worry about enforcing that in here, in our class. And, my wife and I were discussing this, and she said, well, how do you do that? I said, well, in my mind, that's a
Yeah, and, as you know, we've had policies in place for classroom teachers. They had the authority to confiscate phones or to call in an assistance for, students that phones were being a distraction, and that's why, we believe that this is really a huge government overreach, is that this is not an issue in our district, at least, that needed to be solved with a total ban on cell phones. The classroom is not gonna be an issue. I don't see it as being an issue. It's in the hallway, in the cafeteria, in the areas where there's large student gatherings is where, it's gonna be a bigger issue of monitoring and enforcing.
And even the organizations, there'll be some adjustment because, past years walking around, it's been used as a tool also for communicating, you know, if there's a change in practice time or game time, that, you know, QIR codes.
We've had QR codes all over the hallways, walls, you know, times for student organizations to meet, and, yeah, so it's,
You know, Daniel, the law says when they enter the school buildings, when it comes, so on the bus, they're able to use their phones, then, right?
it's not banning it from the bus. It's banning it from the campus during the school day, yeah. And then when the last bell rings.
Have our coaches and sponsors talked about, you know, how reliant we've become on Sports U to coming up with an alternative for that?
You wanna address?
You want me to
Yeah,
address
go
it?
ahead, yeah, come on, yeah. Stand up, yeah.
So for Sports U, the good thing is it's an app, but it's also computer-based. And so we're not moving away from Sports U. We like it because it's one tool that we can spread across, that parents don't have to learn different tools. But it also allows the students could access it through their Chromebook. And as an alternative backup, if we see issues with that communication, that emergency communication to students, which would be, you know, lightning, and we're gonna meet here, the next piece then would be to create an email distribution list within your program, just like what we send out, you know, to principals or teachers or whatever. They can do the same thing within their program. To me, those are the two best uses for it, and it's just a matter of changing the notifications in your Sports U account to also get emails.
Which is what we did before Sports U.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Right.
at least we let people know. Some of our coaches don't know what we did 3 years ago.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
before,
Yeah,
you
we
know,
talked
just
about
put
that.
it on the coach's door, right?
We talked about that on the 25th.
I mean, Coach Poland would personally come to my door and say, hey, game's been canceled,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I know he would.
Come on back.
So caring.
But it's always good to give a solution to a problem we don't have.
Yeah.
Let's digress a little bit. So we have a recommendation from the administration that the board approve board policy FNCE local as it is presented. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, been moved by Mr. Dunn. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Schulte. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by nay. All right, that carries. Next item, carry on, sir.
All right, thank you, guys. That's the toughest one so far, but we'll jump into a few more student code of conduct changes for this year because there were a significant number of changes. Good evening again. In alignment with board policy FO local and district goal BISD learning environments will be safe and conducive to learning. It's my pleasure to present the Brazosport ISD student code of conduct for 25-26. This year's student code of conduct does have significant changes in comparison to past years. For this year, we will be using the TASB model handbook primarily, which is the recommendation of our legal counsel, given the large number of changes and the timeline for revisions prior to school starting. Tonight, we will review some of the major changes in the code of conduct. Highlighted and final copy of the student code of conduct have been provided to you in your board book for reference. All right. The primary purpose of a student code of conduct is to establish clear expectations for student behavior, outline consequences for misconduct, and provide a framework for maintaining a safe and productive learning environment. Aside from the student code of conduct, which will be written in our code of conduct, there is one additional document that we expect to receive by the first day of school from the TEA. The TEA has been mandated to give us a report identifying each law relating to school discipline that was amended or added by the 89th legislature. And after receiving this, school districts must provide to each student and the parent the prepared report. We have not received this document from TEA yet.
It's in the mail.
It's in the zone of uncertainty.
Those are all the laws that apply to our code of conduct. We're waiting on this. To begin, we'll take a quick look at the school district's authority and jurisdiction. The new code of conduct does outline where the school district has authority. As you can see, there are many situations that exist outside of the regular school hours and outside of school events. Later on, I will identify a few changes resulting from the passage of House Bill 6 that Brazosport ISD had direct impact on the 89th legislative session to continue to keep our schools safe. One of the major changes this year is with Chapter 37 of the Texas Education Code, and that is what primarily governs the student code of conduct. Previously, districts could use District of Innovations plans to exempt certain sections of Chapter 37. However, with this year's change, we are no longer able to exempt things such as the campus behavior coordinator position. In the past, we have exempt this because we have a campus of 2,400 plus students, and naming one person as the campus behavior coordinator does create challenges, but we can no longer exempt it, so we will be naming each campus will have a designated campus behavior coordinator. The dress code is outlined in the code of conduct, and after reviewing the campus with the campus administration, we have determined that maintaining the current dress code is appropriate for next school year. This makes it easy for everyone to maintain consistency across grade levels and campuses district-wide. So a little more on the area that we hit on. This is a section on House Bill 1481. We'll now review our House Bill 1481 mandate process for personal communication devices. The new Texas state law went into effect June 20th, 2025, with school systems required to adopt a written policy by September 18th. In alignment with House Bill 1481 and FNCE local adopted just a few minutes ago, we will review the key guidelines outlined in our student code of conduct for 25-26. Those key requirements again are that students shall not use personal communication devices during the school day. Students shall store the devices in accordance with the method established by the district. The district may authorize the use of personal communication devices for the purposes outlined here and mentioned earlier, and unauthorized use will result in disciplinary action. After discussions with campus administrators and reviewing our 24-25 practices, we have modified our previous year's practices to fit the new requirements by the state. Students may bring the device to school, which was an option that we could have exercised either way or not. But students may bring the devices to school each day, provided the device is silenced or off and stored in a bag, locker, or backpack. We elected not to purchase lock-up pouches, rather work with our students on storage of their devices. Next, the term school day had to be further defined, and since most campuses already considered upon entry into the building in the morning as the start, campuses will continue this model. Of course, training will happen the first week of school, and ongoing reminders will take place. The devices will remain put away until the dismissal bell rings at the end of the day. Our consequences currently are outlined in a progressive way and are meant to provide minor first offense consequences to allow students to collect their phone themselves if the rule is violated on the first offense. Parents will be notified each time the rule is violated. The second offense would require a parent to come to the campus to pick up the device, and if the rule is broken a third time, the parent will be required to pick up the phone and the student will receive campus discipline for repeatedly violating the rule. And this was discussed at length with our campus principals, specifically our high school campus principals. So this was a collaborative effort to develop a consequence scale. Additionally, campus administrators and teachers are working to review de-escalation strategies for students who may elect to engage in non-compliant behavior. Any student who refuses to relinquish a telecommunication device upon request by a staff member or administrator will be subject to further disciplinary measures in accordance with the student code of conduct. This may include in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension, or other disciplinary actions as appropriate. Devices that are confiscated and left unclaimed will fall under the Texas Education Code 37.082, which states after 90 days, unclaimed devices may be disposed of. Parents and guardians will be given reasonable written notice prior to disposal. All right. Shifting gears a little bit, and before we move on, just want to remind you that we do consider mitigating factors when making determinations for student discipline. Those include self-defense, lack of intent, the student's discipline history, a disability that substantially impairs the student's capacity to appreciate the wrongfulness, the student's status under foster care, and also a student's status as homeless. Those are the 6 areas that we're required to review prior to assigning discipline. All right, some other updates coming out of the legislative session. House Bill 6 changed from last year's mandatory DAP assignment for possession of an e-cigarette or vape to a new strategy they've implemented where you have the option of sending the student to a discretionary DAP assignment or placing the student in in-school suspension for a period of at least 10 days. Of course, we always go back to the mitigating factors when determining placements of DAP or ISS, and as well as reviewing the number of days based on those mitigating factors. Now moving to the exciting topic of in-school suspension. So, just give you the overview. In the past, probably 20 years, in-school suspension had no limitation. And then 2 years ago, the commissioner determined that the suspension terminology meant for in-school or out-of-school, which is a 3-day maximum. So for the past 2 years, we've been held to a 3-day maximum for in-school suspensions. And really that was an interpretation of a rule, and it was clarified this year in the legislative session. So the clarification yielded us the opportunity to use in-school suspension as needed. There's no maximum number of days for in-school suspension, which is what it used to be a couple of years ago. So we do have to have a review of a student who's going to be in there more than 10 consecutive days. That's not a typical thing to happen in our district, but it is a very good opportunity for us to bridge the gap between we were maxed out at 3 days of ISS or OSS or DAEP, and that's a huge jump. So really value this change that we can use the in-school suspension more than just a simple 3 days at a time when needed. Next big piece, out-of-school suspension. There were some changes. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this, but we were limited on out-of-school suspension for kids below grade 3 or students who were homeless, which did create some challenges on occasion. But as you can see from the 2 middle bullets there, basically they could be suspended for assault, drugs, or weapons. Now, those two middle bullets allow us that if we need to, if there's conduct that threatens the health and safety of others, or if there's conduct that results in repeated disruptions to the classroom. So for our elementary principals, that was a needed relief. It's not often that needs to happen, but on occasion, there is a suspension needed. And those parameters hold true for homeless students as well. So those provisions did allow us some more flexibility for OSS as needed. We will continue to maintain the board's desire to keep 10 additional discretionary placements outlined. We will keep those as mandatory placements. So as you can see, this makes our code of conduct far stricter than most and shows that we value and protect the classroom. So our campuses and teachers are grateful for that, and I do want to be clear that these are not the 10 Commandments. That was your joke, Mr. Schultz.
Did well.
Thank you. All right, so just getting close to wrapping this up, there are levels 4, 5, and 6 in our code of conduct, and those are the major offenses, and they're outlined there. And those are offenses where we have no option. We shall place students in the DAEP or LLC, our lighthouse, or maybe at the JJAEP, which is the Justice Juvenile Alternative Education Program. So they are listed in the code of conduct for those major infractions. And before we wrap up, a little brag time for BISD. With our advocacy at the state level, BISD introduced 3 areas of concern regarding off-campus threatening behavior that were not identified as punishable by school districts. Our influence and voice was heard, and House Bill 6 now outlines 3 areas of off-campus behavior that are mandatory DAEP infractions, and those include the off-campus arrest for deadly conduct, disorderly conduct involving a firearm, and the offense of unlawful carrying of a weapon, and that would be a Class A or B misdemeanor. Brazosport ISD continues to set the standard with our district goal of ensuring that learning environments will be safe and conducive to learning. At this time, the administration recommends that the Board of Trustees approve the 25-26 Student Code of Conduct as presented, and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from the board, Mr. Whitehead?
So, our new code of conduct, which is the CASD model plus whatever's been added with our personal cell phone and all that, was that, you said the lawyers recommended not having as much stuff in it anymore? Because I noticed that a big difference is the details on the offenses on levels 3, 4, 5. You know, that's quite a big difference. So,
Right.
will that be covered in an administrative reg, I guess?
Yeah, so the plan this year is to have an administrator reference guide for those levels. We're going to work on sorting out all the things that have moved or changed and creating a secondary document, possibly to merge everything next year. So the campus administrators like having the levels referenced so that they can, if you do this, you get this, if you do this. There's still some flexibility in the range on those consequences, but it helps them categorize. So we're referencing last year's manual some, but we do plan to provide them an additional reference guide for levels.
By not having it in the code, does it affect our ability to enforce those?
Actually, there's broader flexibility in the new one because they're maintained in a very general way. What we do kind of narrows the scope a little more to categorize, but if you're familiar with the code of conduct, levels 2 and 3 are pretty open to everything up through in-school suspensions. And in here, you'll see almost every infraction is open to almost any consequence. And what we built was an opportunity to give guidance to administrators and some clarity to our parents. And we'll continue to have that. It's just not something we have right now to start the school year with.
I noticed there that, I think it was on the telephone situation, the punishment was said, at least 10 days in, ISS. Is that,
But for the vapes,
is that just for the vape, or is that?
That's specific to vapes or e-cigarettes in campuses, and on campus. So last year, it was a mandatory DAEP, and schools across the state, chose to do a little different strategies based on mitigating factors. If a student has zero discipline history, and they're a junior in high school and they got caught with a nicotine vape, possibly like in their car or something like that, they would not typically send that student to DAEP for a first-time offense. They consider discipline history and make logical conclusions with that. So this year they rewrote it. They're still trying to figure out what to do with vapes. Doesn't seem like anybody's really sure what they want to do with it, but at least they pulled off the mandatory DAEP assignments, and now it's a discretionary or 10 days of ISS.
Okay.
That's the way the law is written.
And the way this is written for the ISS, the 10 days and the principal, monitors the educational progress, I assume that has been done anyway. I mean, in the past, but, so, let's see, what's my question? If they're not making educational progress during those 10 days, what happens then? I mean, that's our system's failure at that point. So,
Well,
I mean, I mean, it's good that they're checking to
Right.
see if there's progress, because it needs to be, because that's, I mean, there's less distractions at that point. So, it should be making progress, but I just wonder why it's written that way. It seems.
I think it has to do with reviewing the services that they receive, because in-school suspension, you're typically managed through a non-certified teacher, and so they want to make sure that students are getting the materials they need, the lessons they need, that they're not just sitting idly in ISS for. We don't have that problem, so it's hard for me to really speculate, but I'm going to assume that it's just left in there and no one's really checking to see how things are going. I don't anticipate, we've not done more than a 10-day assignment in a long time. I mean, usually if we get a major infraction that we're not sending the DAEP, the 10-day is about the max we would ever use, and usually it's the rest of the week and maybe the next. If it's beyond that, we're going to send the student to DAEP, because it would require it more than likely. So I don't anticipate we'll be making long. Now, we could get in a situation toward the end of the school year with 15 days of school left, as opposed to sending the kid to DAEP, that we would assign something like a 15-day.
there was a time, though, that the kid was in ISS and he didn't do his work. He was monitored by the teacher. It was not completed, and he was extended in ISS until that was done. And so, to me, that's, if you're gonna send them there, and you're gonna give them assignments, then don't let them out till they finish it. I mean, I went by Mr. McLeod's class, and I got a little bit of rocket science, so I'm pretty sharp tonight.
That's a Holiday Inn Express.
Osmosis got a little bit of it.
But I mean, that's if we're gonna send them to ISS, it's gotta have a point. And and a lot of them will go in there and sit. And so, and if they sit and don't do their work, that's not a major offense, but it's the point where they're not getting anything done. And, so do they go to DAEP, or what do we do with them?
Well, we do a lot with them. If we get a kid that's apathetic and not doing assignments and things like that, obviously our counselors, our administrators intervene. We look at strategies to motivate. And ultimately, if the student doesn't do their work, they're going to be failing. And that's why we have our BSA program to help students in those areas. I mean, it's a variety of things we're going to do, but you're right. A student could just decide they're not going to do anything, and they probably aren't doing anything in class if they're not doing anything in
That's what I took
in
as
school
saying.
suspension. So.
And, Ken's seen it, you know, I've seen it, it's the same thing, you know, they're there and, oh, I'm in ISS.
But it's easier in 3 days to hold them accountable,
Yeah.
because they can usually go without teacher instruction for 3 days.
After that.
If I'm there for 10 days, it's hard. Think about what we're gonna be doing in rocketry or
Oh, yeah.
our physics class 4 to 5 days from now. So there's gotta be a instructional component sometimes to help those kids that are there.
And the
But
thing-
I'm all for it. Do not let them out until they've done the work.
And, you know, it's like Ken said, 3 days, yes, and for certain, everybody's been in the classroom, gets behind, everything's going crazy. You gotta have a way, you know, we gotta make sure that there's a way that, we check the progress after those 3 days, and if we're not doing it, then the teacher needs to, you know, I don't know if there's a way to report it or something, or intervention at that time.
Yeah, and this new update does give us the option, if they're assigned for 3 to 5 days, to keep them in there longer. So the previous 3-day limit, you know, it was a mandate, it was an interpretation of the law. So we were 3 days and you're out, or we're gonna get, you know, flagged as a student being in ISS longer than 3 days. Now, we do have more flexibility to say, you got 3 days, and if you don't get it done, you're gonna stay at 3 more days until you do get it done. So it actually helps us.
How many students are you, on average, are you dealing with at any given time? I know it.
Which campus? No, our in-school suspension, it just depends on the time of year. You know, our middle and intermediate schools, I mean, there's 6, 8 kids maybe at a time in our ISS. There's not a lot of kids in in-school suspension. Certain times of the year, there's 2 or 3. You know, end of the year, you know, in the spring, you may have 10, 11, 12 kids that are having to do a couple of days for some behavior. And then, of course, Brazosport with 2,400 students, you know, you could get a pretty good sized group in there, and it's still a small percent, very, very small percent. So overall, we don't have an overcrowded ISS facility, and same thing with our DAP. We don't have an overcrowded DAP. Our kids do really good. They really do. They respond. The strategies that have been put in place are working really well with our kids. I don't say that too loudly because I'm not going to wood, but our kids, we got good kids.
Do we still do pre and post-school D-hall? Is that still a thing?
We do some Saturday D-halls, after-school D-halls. A lot of it too, they implement through the right choice programs where students aren't eligible to participate in things if they don't stay out of ISS, and that's a big piece for kids. They're not able to go to the dances and things like that, or the right choice celebrations. We do the carrot and the stick, so to speak, and our campuses are really good at it.
Anybody else? Audience? All right, hearing none, then, we have a recommendation from the administration to approve the student code of conduct as presented. Do I hear a motion?
I'm ready to pray.
Moved by Joe, do I hear a second? Second, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by nay. Carries. Thank you, Mr. Schulte. Next item that we have on our agenda under the action items is the shared services agreement renewal with Angleton Independent School District for the Sierra School. Brian Cole.
Good evening. In accordance with EHBAC Legal, it is my pleasure to present tonight regarding the shared service agreement renewal that will continue to allow the district more options to provide individualized education, meeting the needs of our students. The Sierra Schools program is a shared service agreement renewal with Angleton ISD to utilize 3 seats for Brazosport ISD students in their existing contract with Sierra Schools for a day school program. It is designed to provide social and behavioral interventions for students with high demonstrated needs in grades 6 through 8. And it will continue to be an additional placement option for students in need of more intense support than our current behavioral program called BEST. We have either been unable, who have either been unable to demonstrate success and other environments. The cost for the program this school year is a little over $124,000. Last school year, all three spots were utilized during different parts of the school year, and we anticipate starting this year with one spot filled, which will leave us room for students that may join us at the beginning of the school year or later on in the school year that demonstrate such needs, or a returning student perhaps that demonstrates needs for such support. At this time, the administration recommends the approval of the shared service agreement renewal as presented and authorization for the superintendent to sign the agreement. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Is that a year-long placement, or is that a kind of a month here, month there kind of a deal?
Generally, students that go there, they're set up with certain expectations and certain goals, and some students that demonstrate success are able to work their way back into the main campuses, but students that, some students continue to need that level of support. So it really depends on the student.
It is 6th through 12th grade.
6th through 12th grade, yes.
Yeah.
So how many spots, I assume Angels is contracting with this Sierra group, how many total spots are there?
I believe they have 10 spots.
So
We have
they-
3, and I believe they may be contracting with one other district as well, too.
Oh, are they, okay, that was my question, so. And all of it's housed,
South, I believe that they're JJAEP.
so we provide transportation,
We provide the transportation, yes.
so that's in addition to the 41,000.
Correct. Although it's important to note that there are some reimbursements for special education and transportation that may not cover all of the costs, but at least are somewhat increased. And depending, each year, the Texas Education Agency releases what's called high-cost reimbursement number. Of course, they don't release it until the school year has started. So if the cost of education for a student, I believe, is above 3 times the normal for special education, then the district can apply for reimbursement of those high-cost needs. But sometimes, once again, we don't know the threshold until after the school year has started.
Yeah, no need to get information ahead of time, so you
What happens if we truly have 4 that need our service?
If we truly have 4 that need service, we can always consult and see if they have a spot available. But generally in programs like this, there's not a spot available. So we will continue to work with the students and identify how we can service the needs for the students that's waiting in their current placement. And then in some cases, there's other programs available, like other day placement facilities, that if needs are high, we could explore those as well.
Do we have an action plan, so to speak, in place, should that happen?
Well, we know lots of different facilities and resources, and we have worked many years with students that have behavioral needs. So we have a great team. We have several BCBAs, Certified Behavior people, that are able to come and take a look and help us create some plans as we move forward. Yes.
Move for approval.
All right, it has been moved by Mr. Fortner that we approve the recommendation by the administration, and seconded by Joe. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by nay. That carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item that we have under action items is the agreement for the purchase of attendance credits from the state. Ms. Casino.
We have received notification from the Texas Education Agency that our projected local revenue will exceed our state entitlement for the 25-26 school year. This determination is based on TA's estimates, which rely on projected student enrollments and estimated property values for the 2025 tax year. Last year, the ISD was initially anticipated to pay recapture. However, due to tax rate compression, the district ultimately did not owe any recapture payments. For the 2025-26, TA has once again identified the ISD as a district that may be subject to recapture. At this time, the proposed budget does not include recapture payments, and none are anticipated. Before the board may adopt a tax rate, it is legally required to take action and select a method to reduce local revenue in excess of entitlements. This step ensures compliance with the Texas Education Code, Section 48.257 and 49.004, and aligns with the state's funding formula. As a district with projected local revenue in excess of our state entitlement, we are required to take action to reduce that excess. The Texas Education Code provides 5 options available to districts in this situation. Option 1 is to consolidate with another district. 2, detach property. 3, purchase attendance credits from the state. 4, contract to educate non-resident students from a partner district. And number 5, consolidate tax bases with another district. Options 1, 2, and 5 are not viable to our district. Consolidating or detaching property would reduce our tax base for both M&O and INS purposes. This would decrease our capacity to support future bonds and could require an increase in the INS tax rate to meet our current debt obligations. Option 3, purchasing attendance credits from the state is the lowest cost option for the district. This involves a direct payment to the state and includes a credit for the amount we pay to our county appraisal district. Historically, Brazosport ISD has chosen this option, and it continues to be the most cost-effective and administratively feasible solution for us. As the next step in this process, if a district has received notification from TA indicating that it will have local revenue in excess of entitlement, it must take action. Specifically, the district is required to submit the district intent and choice selection form by September 1st, 2025. This form indicates which option or combination of options the district plans to use to reduce its excess local revenue for the 25-26 school year. Submitting this form allows the district to begin any necessary preparations for an election under Chapter 49 of the Texas Education Code, should that be required. The second major deadline to be aware of is January 15, 2026. By that date, the district must submit the official agreement or contract to reduce excess local revenue based on the option selected earlier. These steps are essential to remain in compliance with state funding requirements and to ensure we can continue forward with our budget and tax rate adoption process. This recommendation must be made exactly as written and recorded in the minutes. The administration recommends that the Board of Trustees approve the agreement for the purchase of attendance credits with the Commissioner of Education and delegate contractual authority to obligate the school district under Texas Education Code TEC 11.1511C4 to the superintendent solely for the purpose of obligating the district under TEC 48.257 and TEC Chapter 49, Subchapters A and B, and the rules adopted by the Commissioner of Education and authorized under TEC 49.006. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from the board?
Do we have any type of guess how much we get back to the general fund?
How much we would get
How
back
much-
to the general fund?
How much we capture might we?
There is no recapture anticipated for next year. It's more of a formality because based on their estimates, we are identified as being a property-rich school district, but we don't anticipate having to make a recapture payment. This year, for fiscal year 24-25, we had to do the same, and we're not gonna have a recapture payment this year as well. And it's because of the compression of the tax rate.
I love the 5 options. Great options.
Any other comments or questions from the board? From the audience? All right, do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve the agreement for the purchase of attendance credits with the Commissioner of Education and delegate contractual authority to obligate the school district under Texas Education Code 11.1511C4 to the superintendent solely for the purpose of obligating the district under TEC 48.257 and TEC Chapter 49, subchapters A and E, and rules adopted by the Commissioner of Education as authorized under the TEC 49.006.
You didn't have the mic on, could you read that?
Let me copy and paste.
It's been moved by Mr. Atkins, is there a second? Do I hear a, is there a second? Ms. Cuellar, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed by nay. All right, thank you, ma'am. That's all of our action items. Our next regular scheduled, meeting is the 18th. Thank y'all for coming today to the special meeting. Unless, there's a need, we do not have any other items to discuss for executive session.
Okay.
No submission, all right. That being the case, unless